Hello and good afternoon to all the good viewers of the English program of our weekly program. We are now going to talk about the English portion of this week's program. You guys are a little bit ahead as far as what we are covering on a weekly basis because last week we went a little bit further in the English language than we did when we were talking about it in the Persian language, only because there were other things that had to be explained in the Persian language from the English, which we had to read to them and re-explain to them, that we didn't have to do with you guys because we only read it once and we can move forward, since the actual evidence is in English. So there is a little bit of a faster pace for you guys. However, last week we spoke about this letter regarding the spoils of war, and I explained to you guys 20% goes to the Prophet. So this Jafar As Sadiq was trying to do everything he possibly could do in order to somehow make it seem like he's entitled to this money. Remember we talked about look into your heart, like the song? So this continues. Remember, before we continue, remember, it's very important for you to remember what was going on. If you remember, those people attacked the village somewhere and they killed the men, and now they're taking all the women and the little kids captive and stealing the money, looting whatever they can find. This problem arose. They're writing a letter to Jafar As Sadiq. So a bunch of people are writing these letters. Someone in those days, it wasn't like you write a letter today and you send it through email. In those days, they didn't have cars even. They had to ride a horse, which is laughable because in Saudi, where it's all desert, horses can't live, okay? Horses need to eat hay, they need to drink water, and they can't do well in the heat of a desert. They're not made for running in the sand. Okay? They could, but that's not what they're made for. Where do horses live? In an area that has a lot of grass where they can eat. So this myth about the Arabian horse, number one, is false. It's the horse of the Iranians. It's the Persian horse. It's the Fars, as the Arabs would call it. And they even call the horse Fars, the same word they use for Iranians. Okay. So this horse lives in Iran. So over there in the deserts of Arabia, where this war was taking place, they didn't have a horse. They had to use camels. Camels are the animals that Arabs grew up with back in those days. Everybody had a camel. Okay. Now, some people might also have a donkey around their home if they live in a place where there was a little bit of grass, vegetation on the outskirts of a desert. But everyone who was in a desert had a camel. So somebody had to ride a camel, bring a bag full of letters, give it to Jafar, who lived in a desert, mind you. Medina is a desert. So he had to bring it over there, give it to this guy, and this guy had to read the letter. And that's when he started with all that open and listen to your heart. See it with your mind. I mean, you don't see it with your eyes. Who told you see stuff with your eyes? Come on now. It's with your mind. You have to see with your mind, okay? Remember how these people nowadays, a lot of them, the ones that don't believe in a real religion and they just believe in a higher power, and they say they have a third eye, and that third eye sees everything that's in the mind, and forget about your regular eyes, and they've made a mockery of a third eye and everything. This was how it started, okay? This guy was the first guy who made a mockery of the third eye. Anyway, we covered all that. So now he's continuing. Now remember, when someone writes you a letter, it means they are far away from you. They're not beside you. Like you can't sit down and have a cup of coffee or tea and say, hey buddy, how you doing? It's nice we can sit down after a long day. No, no, no. They were far, far away, you know. You can't see them. It's a couple of days of riding a camel to get to this guy. Now he has to ride a camel several days, the guy who's working as a messenger in the middle, to take the response of two different groups to each other. So he's far away. Okay. So now that he's far away, we're going to look at what exactly is Jafar As Sadiq saying to them, right? He started with listen to your heart and see with your mind, act justly, and all that stuff, right? Then what did he say? He told them, if you don't do what your heart is telling you, then you're going to pay the price for it, because on the day of judgment, this Allah is going to stick some metals, all the metals he can find on earth and in the universe, because it's supposed to be heaven, and he's going to shove it up, literally. This is what the hadith says. He's going to shove it up your anus, and then it's going to come out your mouth, and he's going to turn it into a chain, then he's going to put it on the flame, right? So he's going to use it like a skewer, and you're going to be turned into kebabs, right? If you don't do what he tells you. The whole of Islam, when you look at it, top to bottom, it's built and surrounded by fear. If you don't do what we tell you, that's it. You're finished. You know, if you want to believe and do something, you have to do it the way that they tell you. If you don't do it the way they tell you, got bad news for you, man. It's all over. You know, you're in deep, deep trouble. So it's important that you do exactly what they tell you to do. If you don't do what they're telling you to do, then too bad. You know, you're in a lot of trouble. So back to what we're talking about here. After that portion, he decided to tell them about other stuff. I understood what you wanted. We heard that part. Beware of Allah. Now he's giving you advice. Jafar As Sadiq is giving you advice. You know what this beware of Allah reminds me of? You know, in the West, you have a little sign beside some homes and beside some cars, and it says, beware of dog, right? Same thing here. Beware of Allah. Who said this? Not me, not me, not me. Jafar As Sadiq said this. So according to Jafar As Sadiq, Allah, the God of Islam, is nothing more than a wild dog that you have, that you scare people to stay away from your home. You know, like a security dog. If someone comes, it's going to try to rip their heads off. Yeah, that's the same way this Allah is. You see, beware of Allah. Just like beware of dog, beware of Allah. Yeah? Beware of dog, beware of Allah. What do you get? Same thing. You just change the name dog to Allah, Allah to dog. Same sentence, same everything. So beware of Allah, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, don't become a Muslim. Do not become a Muslim. Because if you do, now you got to beware of Allah. He's your Lord. You know, he's our Lord, he says, because he's talking about himself and his followers, not you and me. He's talking about Muslims. You know, so he's the Lord of the Muslims, this Allah, okay, the one that you got to be aware of. Okay, and normally when you follow a religion, they tell you, you know, now that you're following, I mean, you're following, you're doing what they told you to do. Now you should be in the compassion of God. But in Islam, it works the opposite way, right? So now that you're a Muslim, now you got to beware. of our Lord. He didn't say, beware of the God, meaning, God of everyone. No, no, no. He's talking about our, meaning he also admits that others have other gods other than the God he has, which is Allah, right? So now, he knows everything. 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 Come on, people. You know what we're going to say. The God of Islam knows everything. We're going to show you some proofs of how he knows everything. Men have sperm coming out of their backbone. Women have sperm coming out of where their ribs meet, where a necklace falls right here between the breasts. Right here, right here, right here, right here. Okay. And it comes out. And the Prophet of Islam says, whatever he says, the Quran says he doesn't speak on his own. Don't say, oh, to the Prophet, because whatever the Prophet says is not from him, but from us, meaning God, that Allah. So Allah told the Prophet to tell the people that the semen of the men, and they don't have the word semen because it did not exist yet, so he called it water. The water of the men is white and thick, whereas the water of the women is yellow and thin. So Allah knows everything, ladies and gentlemen. Allah knows everything. Everything. He did not forget to mention anything in his book. That's interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, we found the scripture from Allah that explains everything. I have a question. How do we do the Islamic prayer? We have 100 verses in the Quran. Not one of them explains the instructions on how to do this prayer. It tells you to do it. It doesn't tell you how. So we don't know about what this guy's talking about when he says everything is mentioned. When it comes to charity, it tells you to do it. It doesn't tell you how much to give. Again, we fall. When it comes to fasting, it tells you to do it. It doesn't tell you how to do it. That's why they have a difference of opinion. And the month of Ramadan starts on 3 different days because different sects follow it differently. And then at the end of the month of Ramadan, they end it on 2. So they start on 3 and they end it on 2. So somebody came short because the month in the Arabic lunar calendar, you have 30 days and 29 days. There's no 28. So somebody came out short because for somebody, their month ended on a 29 and somebody else, their month ended on a 30th. Hence, you can have the beginning of a new month. But somebody in this process started a day later than everybody else, and hence they only got 28 days. So somebody lost a day. It's important because now when you lost a day, you need to get a day back, which means your calendar will be off moving forward every single day till the end of the year. So now you're off on all your other important dates. So everything gets affected. But somehow they all agree on the same day to end on, which makes absolutely no sense. You got to be completely out of your mind to accept something like that. Because if you take that calculation to any mathematician, and they'll be looking at you like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you get this? You lost a day somewhere. But anyway, I digress. Let's move on. Let's see what else he's going to tell us. Allah did not describe how to get money. Oh, he didn't tell you how to get money, right? Okay, why? More than explaining how to divide this money in a proper way. So Allah didn't tell you how to make money. He also didn't tell you how to distribute the money that you gained through theft and killing and war and slavery. I thought he talked about everything. These are parts of everything. So he's contradicting himself. He said one thing, now he says the opposite. Okay. Let's move forward. See what else he's telling us. Okay. He did not mention anything in the Quran unless it used and what are relevant have been described. Ladies and gentlemen, praying in Islam, worshiping a God in Islam is not relevant. This is why he didn't explain it. Paying to charity is not relevant. Fasting is not relevant. Also, when you attack and loot a village and kill all its men and make all its women and children your sex slaves and take all their monies and belongings and animals and whatever else they have, it's not relevant. I mean, nothing's relevant in Islam. What's relevant? I'll tell you what's relevant. With which foot you can enter the bathroom. That's relevant. Okay, we're told precise instructions. All Muslims agree, unanimously. All the sects. Okay, Shia, Sunni, Ahmadi, Mahmadi, Wabadi, whoever they are. Smiley, non-smiley, Salafi, Wahhabi, you name it. They all agree. They all know which foot they have to enter the bathroom. Okay? They all know which hand you got to use to eat with. Right? They all know that. They all know how many times after you go to the washroom and you do number one, urine, you go and relieve yourself. How many times you got to shake it? You know the thing we're talking about. Come on, the Joe Biden thing. You know the thing. Just think about it. Where does urine come out from? You know the thing. You got to shake it. How many times? That's important. That's relative. We need to know that. That's relevant. You can't get more relevant than that. That's the top of relevance. If you want to know where the top of relevancy sits, you got to know how many times you got to shake it. Okay, that's how you know. Okay, but praying, come on, that's not relevant. I mean, what is prayer going to do for you? Think about it. Huh? What is prayer going to do for you? You're praying to a statue. What is it going to do? I mean, it's a statue at the end, right? What can you do? Remember, beware of Allah, by the way. Beware. Just like beware of the dog, beware of Allah. Okay, beware, man. I'm telling you. I'm giving you good advice. It's not my advice. It's Jafar As Sadiq's advice. Supposedly, he's the guy, he's the jurist behind all the laws in Shia Islam. This guy, okay? Let's see what else he said. Okay? Those old and poor should be assisted till they are rich. When they're rich, we're coming after their money, by the way. But until that time, you got to assist them. Ladies and gentlemen, don't you remember last week we read a saying from this same Jafar As Sadiq that said, if you gather money to give to a poor, like somebody, let's say there is a town, okay? Let's use a name everybody knows around the world. Everybody knows. We're going to talk about the Big Apple, New York. In our example, New York got hit by a natural disaster, right? A tsunami took place. And now everybody in New York is devastated. They all need help. Big, massive population. Everybody needs help, right? New York. The whole world knows this name. Now you go and you collect some money and you do it the right way, the legal way. Everything is accounted to the last penny. And when you give it to the people of New York so they can get a helping hand, Allah is going to punish you. Remember we read this? I gave the example of someone living in Arizona wanting to help somebody in California. Remember? Now, this week, the follow-up to that is we need to help the poor and the old And when they become rich, we go after their money. So which one is it? Do we help the poor? Do we give them money? Or no? We steal their money. Which one is it? They contradict each other. Don't worry, it's not relevant. Okay, let's see. What else? And help the wayfarers till they reach their homeland. This is why they have to help Palestine. This is why they need to help Lebanon. This is why they need to help Yemen. See, the Islamic Republic of Iran, a bunch of terrorists who are committing genocide on Iranians, they need to help others from other lands with Iranian money. Do you start to get the picture? When you help the poor, you don't help your poor. You help another type of poor. When you help the old, you don't help your old. You help another type of old. Essentially, what you're doing is you're digging deep in your pocket and you're taking the money that the people of your own community have a right on in case of helping, and you're denying them, and you're going to give that money to a people who are your direct enemies, who want to see you and your community fail. That's who you're supposed to help. Isn't that evil? Isn't that the most evil thing you can think of? You help somebody who sees you as their enemy. That is how Islam is telling you to do it, according to Jafar As Sadiq, by the way. Another thing is that although Hajj is emphasized, but it can be ignored. Hold on a second. According to all Muslims, Shia or not, every Muslim will tell you, as a Muslim, you have to do Hajj at least once in your life. You have to. It's a must. It's one of your commitments that you cannot get away from. You got to do it. People save their whole life. They get in lines in the Middle East and in Muslim countries because there's only so many of them allowed each year to go. So you got to wait in a waiting list. And before that waiting list, you got to have the money. And then you go there. You spend that money to go there to perform this pagan worship called the Hajj, so that you can fulfill the visitation of visiting Allah's house. Like God has a literal house on earth that you go to, like you come to my house. The same way you go to God's house. We're not talking about churches, temples, mosques, mausoleums. No. We're talking about a little brick house that they've built in the middle of a desert in a city that never existed until recently. So recent that the Americans had to send engineers to come and work on it to build it, so that the poop of the people doesn't flood the house of this so-called God named Allah. How old is America? America is a relatively young country, by the way. That's how young this city is. It's not an old city as they tell you. If it was an old city, American engineers wouldn't go there because America's young. But American engineers physically went there, which means this city is younger than America. This city supposedly got built, but never really got built. People couldn't survive in it. A handful of people would stay in it from time to time for Hajj. Other than that, they wouldn't stay there. It had water plumbing problems, which they're fixing until today. They're still working on it to turn salt water from the sea into fresh water. They bring it in by trucks. I mean, these are stuff anybody can go and do a tad bit of research and they can find out for themselves. Anyway, the Hajj, apparently, you can ignore it, ladies and gentlemen. Jafar As Sadiq said so. If it would be put someone into a critical situation, if you're going to be in a critical situation, ignore it, toss it to the side. You know, just about everyone in a Muslim country today is in a critical situation. They're all poor. They all need someone to help feed them. So I guess none of them should go for Hajj anymore. Okay? Allah the Almighty, who is not almighty at all because he doesn't do anything that's mighty and majestic, said the following about alms. Alms, ladies and gentlemen, is another word for charity. Okay. So now he's going to quote for us this verse from the Quran regarding how we are supposed to give alms. Let's read it together and see exactly how much do we give in alms. Alms are for the poor and the needy and those employed to administer the funds. So let's put it this way. Here's the situation. I hire a guy named Steve. I tell Steve, Steve, now you're working for this charity. Our aim is to collect money, and our money is going to go to feeding the poor, right? Steve says, I like this idea. You're on the right track. And then I say, Steve, I can't pay you even though I hired you. So I will have to pay you your salary from what we collect. Steve says, I like where you're going with this. And I tell Steve, Steve, here's how it works. Whatever we collect, 99% of it will go to you and me. And that 1% that's left will go to the poor. And Steve says, I like how this sounds. And me and Steve recollect $100,000. $99,000, right? More than that, actually, because if you want to think of it, you know, technically all of it except for $1. Everything comes to us. That $1 is going to go. But here's the catch. Who's the poor? Now we're going to find out who the poor person is, okay? We're going to give this poor person $1 out of 100,000. Let's see who it is. We're going to give this guy. Okay. Allah is talking. Remember, this is from the Quran. For those whose heart have been recently reconciled to truth, for those in bondage and in debt, in the cause of Allah, and for the wayfarers. So now let's look at these people. Whose heart recently got reconciled? Steve, because he joined this firm to raise this money. Okay? And is he doing it for the truth? According to us, yeah. For those in bondage. Who's in bondage? I'm the one in the bondage. Why? Because I needed the help from Steve. My hands were tied. I needed someone to do this. So Steve and I are still collecting that $1. And then what happens? In the cause of Allah. Are we working in the cause of Allah? Yeah, we're trying to collect for the poor in the cause of Allah. Me and Steve. And then what happens? And for the wayfarer. So now the wayfarer is someone who was, remember, he's trying to connect to his homeland. So he has to be somebody from outside of our people. So how do we do that? We find somebody who's trying to get home, but instead of getting him home, we get him to take this money, tell everybody, hey, I got the money, they help me. And then we take him in the back alley somewhere, we give him some good, knock him out, take that money, that $1, and we go. Which means we took all the money, 50-50. Nothing for the poor, nothing for the elderly, nothing for the wealthy. You see how it works? That's this ayah. Now let's see. Therefore, Allah informed the Prophet. Okay. Remember, wherever you see this S over here in the brackets, this is supposedly for sallallahu alayhi. What this means, alayhi is from alayhi, that and then le. That le is their God. Okay. So the God of Islam, his name is le. That salah that's in front of it is coming from salat. Salat means to worship, right? So who's worshiping? God's worshiping, because they're talking about leh. So every time you say the name of the Prophet, or you even write Prophet, and you're regarding Muhammad, the fake Prophet, the God of Islam, Allah, is praying to Muhammad. Wa ali at the very end means also his sacred family members, like this Jafar As Sadiq. So the Shias have 12 imams, which they've added 2 more to. So their whole name is Ithna Ashari, meaning they believe in 12 sacred imams, but they've added to that 12 number a 13 and a 14. Khomeini, the Indian, and Khamenei, the Iraqi, okay, in modern times. So they have 14 that they literally worship, but they say they're worshiping and following 12. How do we know they're literally worshiping them? Sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Peace and blessings. It's a lie. They don't say peace and blessings. It says sallallahu alayhi. Salah is coming from salat. Salat is to worship. It's not blessings. It's worship. You know, like how you worship your God. You don't bless your God. You worship your God. Here, God, Allah, the statue, he worships the Prophet of Islam. Okay? It's important for the English community to understand that. So, what's going on here? How to spend the alms, this money for the poor, right? Spend otherwise, and he knew to whom it should be given and through which ways. See? Who knows? Who's this he knew? He knew. He knew. He knew. That's supposedly God. God knows who you're supposed to give it to and in which directions and ways to give it. God knows, God knows. What good is that for people? That doesn't tell people how to give it. If I tell you, I know the directions to my house and the different ways that I get to my house. Yeah, I know. You're going to say, well, how am I going to get there? Give me the directions. And I tell you, don't worry, I know. Yeah, but you need to know. No, don't worry. I know. That's what's happening here. God knows, but hey, what can we do? Supposedly, God knows everything, remember. Allah prevents his prophet and his close relatives and his prophets from getting alms from the people. So charity, you can't give it to a prophet and you can't give it to his family members. Now remember, why is he saying all this? Because he wants to bamboozle those killers and murderers and child molesters who are pushing slavery, that the money that they recently gained by killing a bunch of innocent people should go to Jafar As Sadiq's pocket. So he has to make up all this scheme of mumble jumble talk to somehow fool those people into giving him the money, right? So we're going to see what else he says. So this is the rule of alms. This is the rule of charity. Regarding the spoils of war. Come again? Where did charity? Charity comes from the spoils of war, ladies and gentlemen. You need to have war, and then you get spoils of war, and then out of that spoils of war, there's charity. Like, none of this to a person, a sane person, none of this makes sense. You got to be on some kind of drugs to go on a ramble like this and have it make sense to you. Okay? But let's see what happens. Allah promised me to grant me grant me much, and to grant us the victory. So this Allah made a promise to Jafar As Sadiq. I would like to know when he made this promise. Who was the witness? Because according to Allah in his Quran, you need witness when you make a contract, okay? So regarding that, we should have a witness, because when Allah says you need a witness, he should also do what he says. Who was the witness? Nobody. How much is he granted? Nobody knows. When Allah defeated the atheists and the spoils of war were gathered, ladies and gentlemen, I know you all know about this famous battle where there was a guy who's a god. He had one leg with one shin and one foot. Connected to that leg was two arms, both on the right side. One hand had 3 fingers. His other hand had 2 fingers. He had a head with 2 eyes and a little bit of curly hair. Okay? Bald in the middle. Okay? And he sat on a bed that he called a throne. Yeah, cut him some slack. He's old man. He doesn't know what is a bed, what's his throne. Yeah, he doesn't know. This guy, this god, went to a physical war battle, pulled out his sword. Of course, he used the hand with the 3 fingers. Come on now. He couldn't use the hand with the 2 fingers. That's made for cigarette smoking. You know, the other hand, you can grip something with 3 fingers, right? So he grabbed his sword and he went and waged war against all the atheists, and he beat them in battle. And then he looted them, ladies and gentlemen. He got spoils of war from the atheists. When he beat them, he got their gold. He got their pets. He got their wives. I mean, after all, he's a god. He's a needy god. These things, man. Come on, just think about it. You know the thing. Come on, think about it. Think about it. God needs these things. How else is he going to get around? You know, someone has to carry this throne that is a bed for him. And you know, he's got 6 angels or 8 angels, according to some other traditions. And they all look like goats. And they move this throne for him in heaven. So, you know, there was no wheelchairs at the time. He had to use the goats to pull this thing, you know. Poor guy, you know. Cut him some slack, people. Cut him some slack. Okay. A man from Al-Ansar stood up and said, "O Prophet of Allah, you commanded and encouraged us to fight and kill the infidels. And you said that one who killed such and such, and one who arrested such and such, what the heck is he talking about?" First of all, supposedly, Allah was at war physically with these atheists. How we know it was physical? Because spoils of war were gathered. It's not metaphorical. He didn't metaphorically get spoils of war. You come and you kill me, and you take over whatever I had. Isn't that how the robber does it? Kills the guy, steals his wallet. Whatever's in the wallet, he took access of. Right? Same way here. God of Islam, Allah, went to war against the atheists. Don't tell me there are atheists left in this world. They're all destroyed. There's no more atheists. Ladies and gentlemen, if you find someone that tells you he's an atheist or she's an atheist or it's an atheist or whatever pronouns they want to use and they say they're an atheist, tell them they're lying, because we have proof here. Jafar As Sadiq said so 1,400 years ago, that all the atheists were destroyed in a battle where Allah came down and he took spoil of war, and he was gathering it, they kept bringing it in from everywhere, this is what's going on. But now we have a man here from the tribe of Ansar during the time of the Prophet, when he ran away from the supposed Mecca to the Medina city, okay? And then he made two different groups, and one of them was Ansar. Here we have a guy from the Ansar, and what is he telling us? He is telling us, he stood up and said, "O Prophet of Allah, you commanded and encouraged us to." That means, according to this guy from the Ansar, if we're talking about one battle, that means the Prophet of Islam is the commander of that battle, and Allah, the God of Islam, is a soldier in that battle. That's one scenario. So Muhammad is here, Allah is here, at the very, very bottom, not even close by, very bottom, like under his foot. Under Muhammad's foot, you have a God named Allah, Muhammad gives the orders and Allah goes to war. Not the other way around, right? That's one scenario. Or scenario number two, two different battles. One, God was in there and fighting for himself, and he had soldiers fighting for him. And in another war, he had sent his prophet to go, and the prophet spoke on behalf of the God. But then again, if it's scenario number two, then how is God of Islam, Allah, gathering spoils of war? So this means they have to have two different battles. Now we have two different battles. Let's see what else happens here. In the second battle, the Prophet encouraged people to go kill the infidels. Infidels are different from atheists. Atheists are people that do not believe in any God. They don't believe in a creator. Infidel believe in their own gods, but they do not believe in a God named Allah, according to the Muslims. So again, this is showing us these are two different battles. They're not the same. But the clown who wrote this, the clergyman of the Shia Islam, now are saying that according to Jafar As Sadiq, the original clown, two different battles have been turned into one. So I don't know what drugs this guy was on and who was his dealer, but that drug is a heavy drug, my friend. And I encourage you to not take any drugs, because this could be your result. You could turn into a clown like Jafar As Sadiq and start saying things that make no sense. Now let's see what else he says. And the order was, if you kill such and such. What do you mean by kill such and such? Like, who you killing, first of all? Can you tell us? What is such and such? Anything could be such and such. Right? What are you telling us? Is such and such mean if you found a young man within the age limit of 25 and 35, built like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he has the capabilities of like MI6, Is that who we're talking about? Or are we talking about like if you find an old man who can barely walk and he's shaking when he walks and he can't take more than one step? Are we talking about killing him? Are we talking about if you find the soldiers of the army? Are we talking about like if you find the teachers that live in the town? I mean, who is such and such? This guy can't even tell you who you're supposed to kill. He doesn't even know. Okay, now it comes to arresting, right? And if you arrest such and such, again, we are in the same problem, right? Arrest such and such would be guaranteed the spoils of war. So if you kill such and arrest such and such, but nobody knows what you're talking about, you're entitled to spoils of war. Such and one who arrests, well, we just read that, guaranteed. Allah promised me to grant me much. How much? What are we talking about? Are you getting the same 20% the Prophet got? Are you getting 10%? Are you getting 5%? Is there a discount here? Are you getting all of it? Like, what are you getting? Remember, ladies and gentlemen, listen to your heart like the song. See it in your mind with your third eye. And then act justly with it, Give it all. Just give it all to Jafar As Sadiq. At this point, just give it all. Everything belongs to this guy. Because Allah promised him much. Much. When Allah defeated the atheists and all this stuff, and we continue with our talk here, I killed 2 and I have evidence. I arrested 1, so please give us what you promised. Then he sat down. This is very important. He sat down. Now, if you remember, people wrote him a letter. Somebody got on a camel, acted as a messenger, brought those letters to this guy, Jafar As Sadiq, took the letters, read the letters, and now he's supposedly writing his answer. That answer is going to be in the form of a letter, which that poor guy who acted as a messenger has to take back to those people. Those people have to open it and read it. What is the he sat down? Jafar sat sitting down. What is it? The only conclusion you can come up to is he told the poor messenger, you sit and write what I say. Why? Because Jafar As Sadiq cannot read and write. So the poor messenger had to read, and now the poor messenger sitting there writing and looking up at this guy. While he goes on a rant that goes nowhere, and eventually he gets tired and he sits down. So the poor messenger thinks that it's over. But he gets a second wind. Have you ever watched wrestling and then Hulk Hogan powers up, and then they're hitting him, but there's no effect, and he's powering up. Then he gives the guy his finger, says, you. That's exactly what Jafar As Sadiq did, my friends. He's the original clown of clowns. What did he do? After he sat down, he said, afterwards, Sa'd ibn Abdul stood up and said, O Prophet of Allah, it was not our cowardice that prevented us from facing the enemy directly, and it was not the case that you do not like the hereafter. What is he talking about here? Does anyone know what he's talking about? He went from scenario number 1, where supposedly Allah was in a battle, to scenario number 2, when Muhammad was giving orders for a battle, to scenario number 3, when Muslims lost in a battle. Well, we're decreasing, as time goes by, the situation is getting worse for the Muslims here. And the hereafter. But we feared to be away from your position. So the Muslims, they're not worried about losing the battle. They're not worried about losing heaven, as long as they are near to the position of this fake prophet. So who's worshiping who? Are the Muslims worshiping Allah, or are the Muslims worshiping Muhammad? Because none of them are worried about losing heaven and being separated from Allah, but they're worried about losing and being separated from Muhammad. So who really is the God here? Most Muslims have never opened these type of books, have never read these type of books, don't know anything about their religion. All they do is listen to a bunch of clergymen who tell them whatever they want to tell them, only so that they can take money out of their pockets. The same story is playing out today. Instead of Jafar As Sadiq, it's Sheikh this and Sheikh that. Now what happens? And a soldier from the enemy might reach you and hurt or hit you if you use this scheme. They even call it a scheme for dividing the shares of the spoils of war. Then many of the Muslims will return without anything. So the Muslims will return without anything, but all the spoils of war will land in the hand of Muhammad, because the prophet was Muhammad. So this scenario was happening during the time of when Muhammad was alive. So Muhammad got his own 20%, and then found a scheme for dividing shares so that he can have all of it and leave the Muslims without anything. So the Muslims don't even get 1 penny. All of it goes to the hand of Muhammad. Why he's bringing it up? Sorry about that. Digestion problems. Why he's bringing that up? Because here, Jafar As Sadiq is saying all of the money of the spoil of war belongs to him and not the people that wrote the letter. That's what their heart supposedly is telling them, but he's too coward to say that straight up. So he's pretending he can hide behind fake stories about the Prophet of Islam so that he in turn can gain the upper hand of collecting all the wealth. That's not just monetary wealth. That means all the women who are now captive, all the little boys and girls who are now captive, who were going to be used for sexual pleasures in sex slavery, now belong to Jafar As Sadiq. All the animals those people had, whether they had goats, chickens, dogs, cats, you name it, all goes to Jafar As Sadiq. Whatever clothing they had, jewelry they had, money they had, homes they had, whatever they had is a spoil of war, now belongs to Jafar As Sadiq. This is how it moves forward. That's how this thief collected the money so that he can finance the different slave trades that he was involved in, so that he can fulfill his sexual desires through the slaves that he would gather. Then he sat down. He got tired again, ladies and gentlemen. Round number 2, he sits down. Like in boxing, You know, the round's over, you go, you sit down, they give you some water, they kind of, put some more Vaseline on your face, try to get the swellings to go down with some ice, and then they give you some pointers on what you should do. So then the bell rings, and then you go back in the ring and you fight a little bit more, and then time runs out, and you come back and you sit down again on the bench. This guy's doing the same. He's in a mental battle here. He got up, he ranted and raved, and the poor messenger had to write down. And then, he got tired, he sat down, then he powered up again, he went on again, and now, round number 2, he has to sit down again. He just lost his power again, he's sitting down. All right, so he's sitting down. Now you have it in your, I have to tell you this because you have to see it with your mind, with your mind. So now you have the picture. I can't leave you without the picture. Come on now. What would I be doing here if I don't give you the picture? Okay, sat down. And the Ansari stood up. Oh, we're back to the Ansari guy now. Okay? Before we were here with Sayyid ibn Abd. Now we're going back to that Ansari guy. Remember the guy from the Ansar? Let's see what the guy from the Ansar says. We have 3 channels here. Channel number 1, Allah was in a physical war, swinging a sword with 3 fingers, like this. He's got 3 fingers. In channel number 2, we got a different movie. Now the Prophet is there and he's talking with the Ansars, and he's telling them they have to go and kill such and such and arrest such and such. And then we got channel number 3, right? In channel number 3, we're talking about how this Muhammad character pulled off a scheme to steal the money of the dead people that they just went and killed for no apparent reason, and put it all in his own pocket, priceless. So now we're flipping back to channel number 2 because we got bored in channel number 3. Come on. You know what we're doing. You know how it works. You know how when you're sitting on the couch and you got the remote control in your hand and you flip one channel and then you watch a little bit and then you flip the next channel. You watch a little bit and you flip the next channel and you watch a little bit, then you say, let me go back to the other one and see if they're doing anything exciting. And you flip back, you do the flip back and forth. Come on, exactly what we're doing here. Same thing, okay? We have 3 channels right now. Okay, so he sat down, right? And then what happened here? And stood up. Oh my goodness, round number 4, round 3, sorry, he stood up. This is round 3. He got his wind back and said, what is similar to his former talk? Okay. And then he sat down. Oh, he got tired. He gave a speech similar to what he just gave. So the poor messenger guy, he's like, I can't write that. I already wrote that. People will read this and think I'm stupid. They will say, why did you copy your own words twice? So he didn't write it. And then what happened? We got to figure this out. It's important stuff here, ladies and gentlemen. This speech was repeated 3 times, and then the Prophet faced them, and Allah descended the following verse. Ladies and gentlemen, we went into the 4th channel. Now we're on the 4th channel, okay? There is a 4th channel. Why? Because in the 4th channel, instead of the wars that were going on, we have a speech. The speech started and ended and then restarted. Encore presentation. And again ended. But, it was so good. We had to play the encore of the actual speech. So it started again and ended again. And then, it was so good that even Allah was amazed by what the Prophet said. Because of that, we ended up having input from Allah. Like when we have this program, and then I tell you guys, do me a favor, do our team a favor. You are part of this team. And in order for this program to reach more ears, we need you to write a comment underneath the program when the program ends. And you come and you write a comment, whatever you like. This is what Allah is doing. Once this speech was given, I mean, the YouTube program of Muhammad was great. So then Allah came and he gave the following verses as his comment to say, wonderful, amazing, I mean, brilliant, come on. That's why I worship you. You know, Allah is telling Muhammad that he worships. You know, he said it in the Quran. So now he came and he put the following comments. I think our program is coming towards an end. I didn't look as usual, so I don't know exactly what time I started, but I think I started around 5:40 something. So let me give you guys a commercial break here, okay? A commercial break. Underneath our program, there is a little link to Linktree. Please click on that. You use your finger and you click on your mouse, you know, your mouse. And then once you click on the mouse, on the Linktree link, it'll take you to our Linktree. Over there, you find all the social medias that I'm on. The most important of them is my Telegram, because I can share with you stuff on my Telegram I cannot share on YouTube. It's restricted. So those things you can catch up there. On my Telegram, on my Facebooks, on my Instagrams, and other places, you will find notifications of which day and what time we're going live. So you can follow us. Also, subscribe on our YouTube channel. Look into your heart. See it with your brain. And be just. Act on it. Click on the subscription, because when you subscribe to our YouTube channel, the YouTube bots will now promote this to other people that you may know or you may not know who like the same type of programs you like. So when they see you click on this, and they see you click on another program, and they see somebody who didn't click on this program, but has clicked on programs you've already clicked on before, and they like those programs just like you do, then it will refer this to them. Hence, we can grow our population. Your help is very much needed, so that together we can stop this sick religion from taking over and destroying our free cities in the West. We don't want this Western culture that we live in to turn into what the Muslims are trying to run away from in Muslim countries. So help us protect us. Okay? With that being said, I'm going to leave all of you in the hand of Jesus. Until next week, God bless. Thank you. And please